Today's guest is Neal DuBois, a good friend of mine. He is the owner of 406 Attorneys. He also has several business interests throughout the community of Great Falls, whether it's Tracy's or Street Burgers or Omerta Cigars. He is an entrepreneur in our community, and today we're going to talk and learn about how he came to be where he is and all the great things that he's going to continue to do in our community. I can't wait for everybody to check out this episode. Stand by.
69-foot pursuit. Stop! Stop!
Hi, Neal. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We finally we're able to, with our schedules and everything, get it all lined out.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm honored to be here. And, sometimes you're surprised when you're asked, and I am. But, hopefully I can contribute.
Oh, no, I'm super excited. We kind of go quite a ways back. I think I was like a rookie police officer, and I think you hadn't been out of law school that long when we first met.
Yeah, I was a rookie prosecutor. I was doing some part-time prosecuting in the city attorney's office, and we met. And
were you only part-time then?
It seemed like more, but I was part-time, and it was I was working for another firm at the time, and the city contracted with my firm.
Okay.
And I talked my boss into allowing me to do it. So I really wanted trial experience. So I tried to volunteer for every trial that whole year in city court.
Yeah. I remember you were really ambitious. You were a go-getter. And I remember we were do you remember that little back room?
Oh yeah.
Where I called it where all the deals were made.
It was.
And and the bondsmen did all their stuff back there.
Right.
And we went back there one day, and I think it was just you and I back there, and I was like, "Hey, you're gonna go on and be a prosecutor," and you're like, "Nope." You knew right away. You're like, "Nope, I'm gonna go civil. This is what I want to do."
Right.
So
I still enjoy criminal law, and I still take a couple cases a year. I like to keep my foot in there, and I don't like to just do one thing. It gets boring, And there's plenty of it to go around, and.
No, absolutely. No, I thought you were I just remember the energy that you brought. And at that time, I mean, there was good people at the city attorney's office. There wasn't anybody but there wasn't a lot of energy.
Right.
Everything was like, how fast can we get to a deal? How fast can we do this? And you brought all this energy. And I remember just being like, no, don't go. Because we need this, because when you are a, young police officer, misdemeanor crimes are very important.
Oh yeah, no, I remember looking at the books of tickets, and I'm like, come on, I've got to, at least I have something I can dismiss in order to throw over the other side.
It's so true though. But I mean, when you're a rookie cop, it's like, oh, that disorderly conduct, that we're going to trial on that.
yeah, exactly.
No, it was awesome. So before we go down memory lane on 10 other things you and I could talk about, let's where'd you grow up? Start at the beginning, kind of.
Sure. I was born and raised here in Great Falls.
Awesome.
Grew up here. I grew up on the west side primarily. Low income family. I lived usually within a block or two of West Elementary, and you just worked my way through and grew up. I had a good childhood primarily and had fun, and so. I'm proud of it.
What'd your parents do during your childhood and stuff? What was their day to day?
Well, my parents, they jumped around with jobs when I was younger. My dad went to college kind of later in life, and ended up getting a bachelor's degree. But during that time, my parents were trying to raise my sister and I. Yeah. So my mom was working and my dad was working while going to college at the same time. And they would work in group homes or youth homes or I'm not even, they were gone at a lot of different hours. So I know they were working a lot of different jobs.
Shift work jobs and stuff like that.
To try and make ends meet. And they not always met, but our needs were met.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, do you have an older sister or younger sister?
I have an older sister.
Older sister?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you were the young child.
I was the young child. My older sister, Denise, she's she went through like the special education route, and she's great. She's intelligent. She works for one of my businesses right now, and she does great with money
Great.
and people, and she drives our delivery vehicle. But I stepped into the role of a bigger brother pretty early.
Awesome. So talk to me about, so what year would you have graduated from high school?
1999.
Okay. All right. So your youth is really in the 90s in Great Falls.
It is, and it's funny the way you phrase that, would have graduated from high school, because I did not graduate from high school.
Really? So tell me about that.
I'm private about my past, but I'm fine talking about it here. And it was interesting. My parents split up when I was 14. I was a juvenile delinquent for a while. We can talk about that a little bit, but it was a rough go when I was a teen, early teens, and I was pretty much supporting myself from about 15 and a half, 16 on. So
Okay.
I didn't have a choice.
Right.
I relocated to Reno, Nevada with my mother. She was the type that thought that moving changed your problems, but the problems still followed. And, there's from gambling to drinking and everything else that goes along with the split of a family. That was my best choice. I don't know if I made the best choice, but as a 15, 16-year-old, I thought that was my best choice at the time. So I worked and dropped out of high school.
Well, absolutely. I have a 16 and an 18-year-old, and if you leave them to any of their own decisions, it's never a good thing. It's never a good thing. I mean, the amount of, in the fact that you lived with your mom, I mean, that would have been really hard. I mean, two single parent families are such a struggle. It's it's near impossible. So how do you come out of all that? I mean, because you went to law school, so how'd you pull that rabbit out of the hat?
It was a long road, and I was always goal oriented, but I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't always live with my mom. After we moved to Reno, she decided to move back to Montana. Again, one of those problems might go away if I move again. I stayed, and I lived with friends. We lived in, I don't even know, maybe a one-bedroom apartment, and divided it up with curtains and slept everywhere in an apartment in Reno. And there's a lot of paths I could have taken that I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because some of those friends, have been incarcerated. Some of those friends I've never talked to again. And there's a few friends that I have that I'll always have from those days, from Reno. And I just worked and tried to make the best decisions and keep telling people, I'm going to be a lawyer one day, and listen to them say, well, you're a high school dropout. It's a dream. But, it was a long path and just hard work and keep trudging forward.
So how did you get to getting a high school diploma? How did you get there?
I took the GED exam when I was 16.
Okay.
And passed it, apparently with pretty good scores. Then from there, when I was 17, I took a couple community college classes and just slowly worked my way back into academics. I didn't like school that much when I was younger, but I learned to like it, and I knew that was the way I needed to get where I wanted to go.
Absolutely. I hated school.
Yeah.
Hated it. I graduated from high school with a 1.7 GPA. And the only reason that I graduated, truth be told, is that I love sports. And so I had to stay eligible to keep playing sports. Well, I literally stayed eligible to the point that I graduated. Like that was, and I don't even think I was smart enough to really understand it, that graduation would be the goal. Right. The sports just pulled me through to get to the point of graduating. And I don't know if it was for you, it was for me, it was for you. So for me, I love learning. I mean, that's part of the reason that this podcast exists, is I really want to learn. I want to learn what people are really about, not what, the media in our community or someone's bias, pigeonholes them as. You know what I mean?
No, I appreciate this podcast for that reason. I've listened to quite a few episodes, and we're not all politics. We're not all buzzwords.
Right. Exactly.
And I try to remind myself of that when I'm meeting people for the first time and I've seen maybe a post or something online that, pigeonholes this person.
Defines them.
And and a lot of times, I would say most of the time, they are not that person that they're being portrayed to be, or that the media or the buzzwords of the day are telling us who they should be.
No, I completely agree. So where I was going with all that is like, I really love to learn, but I have to have a goal. Like if you send me to school and you're like, well, you have to take humanities classes and you have to take advanced chemistry and calculus. Well, I'm not interested in doing those things. Well, you have to take them to graduate. I lose interest really fast because you're not feeding me any information that makes sense to me. I mean,
right.
I took a bunch of math classes when I was in high school and never have used any of it. I think it helps with problem solving.
It definitely does. You've probably used it in a way you don't really recognize. It built your brain somehow. But
I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, one of the reasons we work out is so we get resilient and tough. Not necessarily just to look better or feel better. Sometimes it makes us mentally tougher. So there's always byproducts of it, but I'm fascinated by that because I know how intelligent you are and I know how much you've accomplished. And so hearing this story of your journey is fascinating to me because I think the other thing I truly believe that academia, especially at a young age, is not designed at all for boys.
Interesting.
I just look at, because I have 2 daughters and a son, and they learn completely different. They're boys learn from play. They learn from being active. They learn from breaking stuff and okay, I broke something. I want to see if I can break it again. I mean, and I'm being a little facetious, but it's just a different. I think it's hard for especially young boys or young men who aren't quite developed yet to sit for 9 hours a day in lectures and stay focused.
That's true.
I think it's just extremely challenging for them.
It is. It is challenging. I remember those days of trying to get through the day and just not caring what I just absorbed just enough to get by. It's
and also getting to know you a little bit too. I think I think there's also a lot of BS in school. And I think one thing I've learned to know about you is you sift through BS very quickly. That's always the thing I've admired about you is if I give you 20 paragraphs of information, you break it down to like one sentence and you summarize. You're kind of my experience with you. And so for all the Gen Z people out there that understand what I'm about to say, my experiences with you is you're kind of like the ChatGPT of information. Like I can present you with information and you'll come back to me and go, oh yeah, this is a summary of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's spot on. And I think that there's a lot of unnecessary conjecture. And sometimes if you have kind of a strong BS meter, you're like, let's go through all this. Let's cut to the chase a little bit more.
Right. No, you have to do that. I mean, I'm busy. And some of that came from, my life experience of just trying to make the best decision on the fly and having to process that stuff. But also law school kind of teaches you how to think like a lawyer. They break your mentality down, or they try to, and try to make you think like a lawyer. And it's hard to explain what that means, but it is reading through and perusing a 50-page document, and then you key in on the right spots when you need to. It's
absolutely. So where did you get your undergrad from?
Undergraduate, I did go a year and a half, I think, here at MSU. I think they called it College of Technology back
COT.
then. The COT, I'm not sure what it's called now.
Yeah, they used to call it it was a COT. Yep.
I did move back from Reno to Great Falls for a period of probably a year and a half or so. Then I went back to Reno with one of my friends that I made back there, and I started working and going to school. And I did get my undergraduate with criminal justice and political science from the University of Nevada in Reno.
Oh, okay. So you're criminal justice and political science. So
yeah.
Why did you pick those two? I mean, it's a great path for a lawyer.
Yeah, no,
Is that why?
That's one of the reasons. And I did contemplate being a cop at one point, and I applied, and I actually went through and took the exam and did the physical fitness thing and got offered a job before I went to law school.
Was that in Reno?
That was Sparks, Nevada.
Sparks, yeah. I remember you telling me about
Yeah.
that, actually, now that it's been a while we've had that conversation. But yeah, I remember you saying something about that. So, no, that's awesome. And I think, and honestly, I think that's great experience for an attorney to be involved in some facet of the, if you could, and I think being a law enforcement officer is I guess my advice to anybody out there who'd want to become attorney, like that's a great pathway because it's crazy. I just think about me and how much I've had to learn about the law in my time in law enforcement and how like deep dive I've had to take and read all this stuff. And I'm constantly talking to people, my friends that are attorneys like you going, okay, so how does this work? And then there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law and then there's case law.
Yeah.
And so I mean, the lawyers really get into all the stuff outside the letter of the law. And they do. That's their job. Their deep dive is into that.
No, I agree with that. You would think that by now we would have written black letter law that could cover a scenario, but for some reason, every case that walks into my office has some gray area, and that's where lawyers live. We have to find out what that gray area is, and then case law will try to fill that void, but they can only fill that void to the extent of the facts of that particular case. So then we have to read that case and say, my case is maybe half like that one or a small percentage of that one, but I still think that the law should be applied the same or different. And that's where lawyering comes in, is trying to reach the best result for your client, your scenario, which for some reason there's not a law that covers it exactly, and we're off.
So I'm a huge optimist. So I truly believe our justice system is still the greatest thing in the world. We're seeing, I think it's always been there, but with the advent of social media, we are now seeing the abuses of it.
Right.
I think it's always been abused. I think our justice system has always been abused by nefarious people. But I think now with social media and the constant state of news, we're seeing it. But if you look at history and you really do a deep dive, it's always been there. But take that all aside, because we're always going to have bad actors. I think our justice system's really amazing. And I like the gray. I used to not. It used to drive me nuts.
I'm sure.
It used to drive me insane.
Right.
But as you grow up and you mature, and then you run into issues where everybody thinks, everybody should go to jail for life for every crime until it happens to someone they love and care about. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa.
Right.
Pump the brakes on this.
Yep.
And then their worldview changes.
Right.
Or if they have a life experience themselves where they're accused or something like that, and they really are like, I didn't do anything wrong here. Like, I don't know why I'm being attacked. And so I really enjoy the gray. I think it's one of the more fascinating things about the justice system. And I think that I think in law enforcement, it's our safe place to make things black and white.
Right.
It's our comfort zone, right? Because from doing this for, I'm going on 24 years now, putting handcuffs on people and taking away their liberties has never been comfortable for me.
That's a good thing. I'm glad to hear that. It shouldn't be comfortable for anybody.
Now, I'll say this. My 7 years of working internet crimes against children, it was very comfortable.
Except in those scenarios. It's comfortable it's satisfying because you're getting somebody that really needs to get off the streets.
It was very comfortable.
But it's almost like a death. This person's liberty is gone.
And you break the heart. And so here's what bothered me. I felt very good about putting the handcuffs on the pedophiles. I felt great about that. I hated looking at their moms and dads.
Oh, man.
It crushed me.
Yeah.
And I remember I had this one mom, and I put their kid away for probably life. And it was a horrible case. And she called me on the phone, and she's like, and she knew me. And she's just like, Jesse, she's like, I feel like I just had death in the family. And I mean, I was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I've got children, so I now can have empathy for that,
Right.
you know? But I think it's always bothered me, except for that. And that's actually one of the reasons I love that job so much, is that once you kind of had all your evidence compiled, there was less gray, you know? But I mean, I've arrested people for homicide where I'm like, I mean, and it's a homicide.
Sure.
And I'm going, I don't know how I feel about this.
Right.
And I won't go down the road to make an issue of a case, because you and I both know we can't do that. But it just, there's areas of gray in cases where it's like, yes, this person has to have their liberties taken away, but that doesn't mean it's by the letter of the law, it's correct, but
Right.
you just don't, it doesn't sit right.
Well, I mean, then you pass it up the road. You pass it to the prosecutors. You pass it to the judges, and they can make those decisions in the gray area. I mean, that's, you know, when you're a police officer, you're on the front line, and sometimes you can try to think ahead and say, man, I hope that this guy doesn't get the max, or I hope this guy does, depending on the circumstances. But you know, everyone has a role to play, and there's always some emotional fallout. There's always, you're human. You have a sense of fairness, and sometimes what you do may not feel 100% fair, but you've done your part. You've done your role in the justice system, and I agree with you. Our justice system is great. We're a little slow to react, but I think that's just our structure of government, and it's necessary. That it takes a long time to pass laws, and it takes a grouping of people and going through different processes. But you know, like social media crimes and those things, we're slow to react to that.
But that's good.
It's good because not one party or one group or one legislature can just ram any law through. That's good. But there is some fallout. It's just we're a little slow to react in some of the technology.
But I mean, I think you'd agree with this. I mean, you know, Lady Justice, it's with the balanced, you know. But in my mind, to be a true constitutional republic that we are, it's kind of does lean towards the alleged offender. Like it's in my opinion, and this is just layman. This is not legal. This is not legal. This is Jesse knows nothing, never been to law school, don't even have a bachelor's degree. This is Jesse's opinion. I mean, it feels like me, like, because like the burden of proof, you know, is on the state. It's on the prosecution. So you can't just be accused of something and you're guilty. The prosecution has to go through many, many, many steps to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So in my opinion, it's slightly tilted towards the alleged offender, with balance, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think that's always the case. I mean, there is some access to justice issues.
True.
And not everybody will get competent legal counsel right off the bat. It should be tilted towards preserving liberty. I believe that the state has a lot of resources, and our government is designed as such that individuals should be paramount. And the government should be limited in how much they can encroach on an individual. And so I think it is weighed maybe that way under the letter of the law, and it's by design.
Absolutely. One of the things that I always think about, and then I want to get back into kind of your timeline, but I'm fascinated by this part of the conversation. One of the things that I always think about in depth is this, is like, I love what you said about there's access. How'd you say that there's not enough access to?
Access to justice.
Access to justice.
I mean, that's a huge deal. And I know it's across the board, civil, criminal, access to justice for people who can't afford it is hard, but they have rights.
But also this, so this is where I was going with this. What about for people that can? So, like, there are people out there that have means, right? They own a nice home. They've got a nice pickup truck. They've, you know, maybe their homes, maybe even their homes paid for. They worked really hard. They can't get access to a public defender.
Right.
They have to pay for their attorney, which I'm not saying is wrong, but one of the things that I've seen in my lifetime is I've seen the government bankrupt people.
I've seen it.
And then that person sometimes wins, but the prosecution and the judges are all immune to liability.
Yeah.
And so basically they just basically gave up everything they've worked for their entire life. Some people cash out their 401ks, some people do all this other stuff to keep their freedom. Well, that's kind of another form of imprisonment, in my opinion, because now they don't have resources to live, but they were acquitted, and there's no way to make them whole.
Right. There isn't.
You know.
I've had a recent case where I've tried to test that in Montana. And, you know, it was a pretty easy decision for the Supreme Court to say, well, some of these things are right, but the prosecutor made a judgment call, forced my client to spend $50,000 on legal fees, and he was acquitted, and he's never going to get that back.
Right.
He's acquitted.
Yeah.
But there goes his retirement fund, you know.
Right.
And that is unfair, but it's an unfairness that our lawmakers and our judges and have determined that is acceptable because they don't want to hinder a prosecutor or a judge from going after crimes or criminals. So it's a balancing act, and sometimes that balancing act catches you, and you get swept away.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate in those cases. And you know, I just wish there was something there to help compensate those folks.
Well, it's such a huge challenge because if you have nothing, you know, if you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment and, you know, you're walking to work every day and you don't have anything, you're going to qualify for a public defender.
Right.
The problem is the quality. Not always.
It's better.
I've actually met some public defenders who are wicked good.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean you're going to get them.
Right.
And so you roll the dice a little bit, but at least though, like with those individuals, they're not out at anything. They're not gonna. I mean, they're out because they lost their liberty. So I don't mean to be insensitive to that, but I think it's an interesting challenge. And I don't know what the right answer is, and I don't know how you tweak that, because the problem is who pays for it,
right?
You know, and are the taxpayers going to say, you know, because I've seen bills try to go through legislation to try to make people whole. Like basically, it's like you're paying, if you lose the case, you got to pay attorney's costs. I've seen those bills. Well, that's what that's going to do, is if you have means, you don't get prosecuted. So if you're wealthy and you do something horrible, it's like, oh, you're not going to touch me, because if you lose, you're going to pay all my attorney fees.
Yeah.
And I'm going to rack them up to make sure it's a lot. And then the state's like, well, we don't have the budget for that.
You know, it's similar in the civil sense as well. I mean, you don't get your attorney's fees back, so it can work in the reverse. You can have somebody with means sue somebody without means, knowing they can't afford to be papered to death by their lawyers, and they're going to go away as well. So I mean, there's some injustices with that in attorney's fees and how that works, and I don't know the answer for that either. Sometimes I just have to give the bad news to clients that, hey, we won, but no, you don't get your attorney's fees paid, and what you won might not be. You might have spent more on lawyers than what you won.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's always a discussion I have to have with my clients.
So can a person actually, I mean, have you seen a lot of people ever successful? I don't remember the legal term for it. It just left me. I used to know what it was. When you defend yourself.
Pro se.
Pro se. Have you seen many people be successful in that?
No.
Have you ever seen anybody?
Yes, I can't remember. I have seen a couple instances where a pro se person has done a decent job, and in a couple instances they were not the greatest people, but they were good con men. So,
right.
You know,
right. So they pulled it off.
They figured it out, and they pulled it off. But for the most part, no. Our justice system is not open for pro se individuals, and I've gone against pro se individuals, and my job is to represent my client, and it's hard to do that and play and do the procedural rules and everything I need to do to get my client out of the case. But I would say 75% of the time I'm able to get my client out of that scenario pretty easily.
Right. Because they just don't have all the legal procedures and everything down of how to attack that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, a recent case that I had, I won't say any names, but I showed up to court because it was a smaller case. I represent a couple smaller businesses, and they were sued, and I didn't think the suit was warranted, but, the pro se litigant had a right to go to trial. But it was this was a pre-trial. But this pro se individual thought it was the day of trial, and I wasn't sure what she was going to do, but she showed up with a broom and one other witness, and that was going to be her trial. I'm like, what's the broom for? Oh, it's my exhibit. Okay. So I don't know. I wish I would have been able to go through that trial, but we ended up getting rid of that case procedurally. So
I have a really bad joke right now, but I'm not going to go there. That whole thing is fascinating to me because I've often thought that if we had a weakness in our justice system, that's it. That if you were a person who didn't want to basically give up your life, but you knew you had a solid case, like you're like, I didn't do this, I can prove it easily. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, I don't want a private attorney, I just want a public defender because I know this case is I know I can win this case on very little evidence. I'm confident I didn't do anything wrong. And that option's not even there.
No.
That option's not even there. And and where it occurred to me was right now we're building a pretrial program. So the mill levy passed, and so we have like $400,000 to $500,000 a year that we're going to put towards this program. And when we were building it, it's interesting, right? Because the judge's biggest gripe is they don't want to force people, and hear the irony in what I'm about to say. They don't want to force people to pay to be on pretrial. So they're not really keen on saying, okay, Neal, I know you have means to be on ankle monitor, so I'm going to make you pay for it. They don't like to do that.
Interesting.
And basically one of the arguments was, well, if they argue that they can't, I don't really have a way to prove it, so I'm not going to order it, and they'll just stay in jail or have to post bond or whatever. So that's part of our pretrial program, is that we're going to have a government paid option. Okay. So that it's like, okay. But on pretrial, they're not diving into it like that. Does that make sense?
Right.
And that's to get their freedom. And they're not diving into their financials and going, okay, you've got money to pay $15 a day for a scram bracelet or whatever, what have you, right? They're not doing that. And they kind of refuse to. But then when you inverse it back to an attorney, they'll make sure they check. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and this is total conspiracy theory talk, it's total BS. It has nothing to do with based on reality. It just feels a little bit like there's a little inside game with the attorneys, like, hey, lawyers got to get paid somehow, so make sure that we get enough clients coming out that do. And I know it's really not like that.
Right.
Because I know people judge me about those things too. So I have all grace on this, but I think that's what it feels like to people sometimes. It's like, hey, why isn't that option open to me?
In the criminal side, I don't know that's a thing. I've never been asked, hey, is this guy a paying client, or, and making sure I'm getting paid for anything by the prosecution or anything else. Civil side's a little different when you're dealing with insurance companies and insurance defense lawyers and plaintiffs' attorneys, and probably 70% of my practice is plaintiffs' work. So sometimes I know if I push the case just long enough for the defense attorney to bill enough, we're going to settle. Right. But I have to get to that magic point. Right. They my case is always garbage until they billed enough. Right.
Yeah, no, the whole civil side's another can of worms. Let's go back real quick because we kind of jumped over it. So you graduate, you go to University of Nevada at Reno.
Yep.
You graduate with your degree and your bachelor's, and then so you didn't take the job with Sparks PD.
No.
And so were you accepted to law school? Is that why you didn't?
Yes. Okay. And I only applied to one law school. I wanted to come back home to Montana.
Yeah.
And the general advice is to apply to 10 law schools. You don't know which ones you're going to get into, which ones you're not. And in Montana, University of Montana, they accept, back then, 85 students out of 300 to 500 applications or more. I think that was the statistic, around 500. But, I didn't know. I wasn't sure. If I didn't get in, I could have gone down another path.
So when you say 85, you mean 85 people from Montana?
No, 85 total.
Oh, 85 total.
Students
Okay.
in my law school class.
Oh, gotcha.
So I only applied to that one law school knowing they only accept 85 students. And knowing that I was not a high school graduate, but I did well in my undergrad. So it kind of canceled that out.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a good story to tell. I think that helped. And being a native Montanan, being a tribal member, all of those things, just building my way back up, beating the odds, that helped.
So what tribe are you a member of?
Fort Peck.
Oh,
Sioux.
okay. Awesome. Yeah. So when you go through your whole process for law school, is there a bunch of interviews?
No, not really a lot of interviews. I mean, you've got to take the LSAT and score well, which is good. Score well the first time, because if you have to take it again, then they average it, and you just never get up to that high score. I scored pretty decent.
I didn't know that. They average it.
Yeah, they did back then.
Wow.
I mean, this is my 16th year of practice, which is ridiculous. So I don't remember exactly, but yeah, you've got to take the LSAT. You've got to write an essay, and you get a couple phone calls, and that's really it. And they make their decision based on that.
Okay, so they're phone interviews.
Yeah, I remembered one phone call from an admissions person, and that really wasn't much. I mean, I think they primarily based back then on your LSAT score and your essay.
Wow, that's crazy. So you pack up and move up here?
Yeah, I moved home. You know, I had a lot of life experiences in Reno during that time. It was I was a manager at a roller skating rink, and one of my best friends in the world, Brad Armstrong, he owns a couple rinks down there, and I worked for him. And he's still one of my best friends today, which was awesome. I was on the radio during the time I was in college down there, and that was a fun, interesting job.
What kind of radio?
It was, I think it was called Rhythmic CHR, which was like Britney Spears just came out.
Nice.
Genuine. Gosh, there was all kinds of. Christina Aguilera was brand new.
Same music you were listening to when you pulled up in your
exactly.
truck. Yeah,
and Eminem came out. I was doing overnights when he came out, and I was playing "My Name Is" because that's when they decided to test that song. And it was just interesting to see all as we grow. But yeah, no, I did that overnights. Then I ended up having my own show for a couple hours a night here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did all kinds of stuff.
That's great. That had to be a great experience too, going into law school, because you're not afraid to talk. You've probably learned how to cut the ums and hus and all that stuff out of your voice, so that you're not struggling.
But radio personalities not always are great public speaking.
Oh no, that's true.
I met a lot of hermits and a lot of odd folks in the radio business, because they had the best personality in the world when no one else was around them, and they could interact very well inside and behind a microphone, but outside it was just odd.
It was like their alter ego.
Right. It absolutely was their alter ego, and they never looked exactly like what you would think when you see them in person.
See, and I could see you being a radio DJ. Like, I don't think that's outside your wheelhouse at all, because you like to talk to people, you're outgoing, you're fun, and you like to talk about, like, when you and I talk, we don't just talk like what we've talked about on this podcast to begin with. We talk about everything, like little details about this and that.
Sure.
And so I can see you fitting that. So you definitely did not fit that mold, though.
No, definitely not. Yeah. I'm glad it was a fun experience. I know I could do it. I did it. And I did some other voiceover stuff. I was the on-field announcer for the Dodgers one year here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
That was an interesting thing, and I just all kinds of crazy odd jobs that led me to where I'm at today.
So did you, when you moved back up here, did you just jump right into law school? Was it like you moved up and it was go?
Yes. I graduated with my undergraduate in 2005 in May, and then I knew where I was going. I stopped working probably in June of that year, and then just moved up to Missoula and got ready for law school. Law school starts before all of the other classes, and you have some pre-reading and some pre-stuff to do. So, yeah, I just jumped right back in. And
Did you get scholarshiped into law school, or did you have to pay for it?
I had to pay for it.
Okay, so you had to work and everything while you were going to law
Yeah,
school?
no, I had to pay. Actually, my first semester I had to pay out-of-state tuition, which was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And well, that's where I started lawyering for myself at that point. I actually petitioned the university, indicating that because I'm an enrolled member of a tribe in Montana, I'm by per se indigenous to Montana, and that I should be able to have residency. And they agreed with me. So,
But after a year?
after I think it was after the first year, which was a good amount of money.
That'd be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd hurt.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the law school experience for everyone watching, because, I mean, I've had lots of friends who've gone to law school and talked to me about it, and it all depends on the person. I've talked to a couple people who are like, yeah, law school is no big deal. And then I've talked to most of the people I've talked to who said, no, it's pretty stressful.
It is. It's like moving into a cave for 3 years, and completely. It's like mental boot camp. You don't know what you're getting into till you get into it. And I really didn't have a good understanding of what the heck I was doing, and probably a year and a half into law school. I mean, I'm trying to memorize these rules and memorize these things that I'm applying daily now, and it's just like old hat, no big deal. And I think to myself, how the heck did I not understand that? But
Right.
my brain changed during that time frame. But no, it is difficult. And you're in law school with other driven folks. You're in law school with type A personalities, and all of the people that were like you in undergrad, they're in law school.
Right.
And it's interesting, it's competitive, and there's also a little bit of a system of, hey, co-students have had families that have been lawyers for years, or daughters and sons of judges or county attorneys, and they had some help. They had some forms, they had some emails that,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you look at this? And then you have people like me and, my law partner as well, Eric Mills, who are first-generation lawyers, came from very modest means, if you can even say that, and just trying to figure it out without that help. And
Right.
we kind of form our own friendship and group of people that are just figuring it out, and we did.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because I mean, I'm a second generation sheriff,
Right.
so I've always had my dad to be able to go, hey, walk me through this, talk me through this, help me out, like give me some advice here, and it's huge. And I'm at this stage in my life now where I don't need that as much as I used to, but man, there was several years or several different layers of experience in my life where I had that. So having not had that and going into a career field kind of blind,
Right.
it would be very challenging. Very challenging.
It is challenging, and it's worth it, though. It's
Yeah.
3 years. 3 years looks a lot longer when you're looking into it than
Yeah.
when you're done with it.
Whether you're into getting fit or staying fit or just having fun with the family, join the Peak Health and Wellness Center today. With 2 great locations in Great Falls, they're here to serve you. If you like weightlifting, functional fitness, or enjoy a wide selection of cardio equipment, the Peak has everything you need. They also offer classes for all ages and fitness levels. The Peak even has a daycare for those busy parents out there. Go check out the Peak today. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, 1 cup and 1 bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. You'll be floored. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. Central Avenue Meats gets their beef and pork exclusively from a local producer, McCafferty Ranch. Go see them at 422 Central Avenue in Great Falls, and always support your local rancher. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems in Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems in Montana today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. So how old were you approximately when you started law school?
I was, I was 25. I think I was 25. Yeah, I was just turning 25,
Okay.
24 to 25.
Is that about average?
Yeah, some start younger and go right from, undergrad or high school to college to undergrad. I mean, I took an extra year in undergrad and trying to figure out my high school to college transition, since I had a GED and I had to figure that out. That took some extra time.
Right.
But it's pretty typical. I mean, sometimes you have a 22-year-old that's starting law school, and
That seems so young.
they skip some life experience, and they're just all academic.
Right.
And then they learn later.
Oh, yeah. Then they learned hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be tough. So, what do you think what did you take away from the law school experience the most? I mean, obviously, all the information is compiled, but like I know you're good at, if you had to break all that information down, like what was the thing that you were like, okay, this is what law school taught me?
Law school taught me there is a body of knowledge in law and laws that I know nothing about, but I now know the right path to learning those laws, how to apply those laws, and how to go out and get the right information and know the sources. You don't come out of law school being an expert in the law. You don't. You come out of law school knowing how to find the law, knowing how to apply the law in any given situation. I mean, the law is so vast.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know the basics. You know contract law. You know some basics in criminal law, but you just don't know how to apply it in real life yet. So that's really what you come out of law school with is you almost come out and you take your first job and you're like, should I know more? Like, I feel like a complete fraud sitting here because now I'm being asked to represent a real client or do this, and I don't know what I'm doing. I go back to my book, I guess, and look, and then once you start developing those relationships, then you understand, I'm going to go see how this law is applied that might be able to help you, and you start making your arguments, and there's bumps along the road, and you run across older school lawyers or more accomplished lawyers, and they'll teach you a lesson here and there, but that's what law school really teaches you, is how much you don't know, but it opens your eyes to what you can do with the resources that you now know how to use
And access to.
Right. You know how to read Supreme Court case law and make that work for you. That's a tool. Yeah. I mean, that's like your best screwdriver. It could be. It is that's our job. It's reading, writing. That's what.
That's so true too. Because I remember as a detective, I would read case law all the time, right? And I'd go to my prosecutor and I'd be like, this is total bullshit right here. See, it says this, and this is not what happens. And they're like, no, that's not how it works legally. And you're like, but it says, and
Yeah.
and you learn really quickly, like there is an art to this whole thing. Like, no, that argument doesn't hold up. Or they pull out another case law, or usually on their computer.
Yep.
But I'm dating myself by doing that. But they pull out another case law and they're like, well, read this one because it contradicts that one. And
Absolutely.
you're like, okay. All right. Now it's coming to me.
Yeah, it's reading a case is an art form. You've got to know, boil it down, and then sometimes the end result isn't going to be the end result in your current case because the facts are different.
I had an experience with that when I was a detective. I had a prosecutor who had a playbook on how to work a certain type of case, and I won't go down the road of what it all is because I don't want to embarrass anybody because it is what it is. And I was too young to know the difference. I was just like, I was totally trusting, like, okay, cool, we're good, whatever. I trust you, we're good,
Yeah.
And we lost that case bad. And what I learned out of that was that this case was so vastly different, and the facts were so vastly different in this case. Although it was the same type of case, it was the same type of victim. A lot of the facts were the same. There was all these things that were quote unquote the same. You couldn't run that case on the same playbook. And I really taught me something. And then from then on, I really had to keep, when I was on the stand, I really had to keep an open mind. Because I used to think I'd know what they were going to attack me on. I'd I'd read my report and I'd be like, oh, I've got a typo on page 16. That's going to eat me alive. Like I had a report one time where I accidentally put the wrong year in there.
Oh.
Of when the crime occurred. It was one of those things. It was a typographical error.
Right.
I stressed and sweated on that so hard. It was brought up. It was asked, answered. I testified to it. It was like a, boop, But the 20 other things that I wasn't focused on is what I was really getting hit with, and it ended up being fine. But you just, as a layperson, as a cop, as a layperson, it's really hard for you to understand that. And you think and you do as you get. I had a period in my career where I was probably on the stand every week, and this was probably going on like 6 straight years of that.
Wow.
I mean, and it was rough. And at the time, we had a lot of changes in judges, so that also meant that the courts all ran different during that time. And by about the time I was in my last 3 years, I was somewhat able to predict, but I don't think it had anything to do with my knowledge of the law. It had to do with my knowledge of the person who was cross-examining me.
Right.
Because they crossed me so many times.
Yeah.
And they fell in love with their playbook. And so I'd be like, okay, I know your playbook now.
Perfect.
So relax.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it more had to do with that I was conditioned and experienced to it. I think that it did. But I don't think it had to do with what I knew about the law. It just had to do with the fact that, like, whether it's, Carl Jensen or Kenny Olson or whoever it was crossing me, I was like, okay, I know you're going to take this. Okay, two questions in, I know where you're going.
Right. Right.
And so you're like, okay, and then it calms your blood pressure. Because the hardest thing about testifying in front of a good attorney is your blood pressure spikes, you get nervous, and then the words don't come to you, or your memory fails you, or the key mistake is attorneys are great at trying to make you guess.
Right.
And you never guess.
Yeah. No,
And they're great at that.
and police, we actually employ some of the same tactics as police officers do in investigations, but they fall for it. I'll leave, back when I've done some criminal law or even, just regular witness, I'll leave a little dead space, and I've got to fill it. Got to say something.
Yep.
Or I'll say, are you really sure you couldn't have done that a little better? And somebody fell for that one. So like, well, maybe I could have done this. There we go. Open the door for me, and it's just, police officers are more experienced than most of my witnesses that I have to put on the stand because they that's part of their job. But I just tell the truth. That is your saving grace, good or bad. Tell the truth. I'm not going to try. I'll help you tell the truth in the best light.
Right.
But if you tell the truth, you're never going to fumble. You're never going to have a mistake.
Well, and you always remember it because it happened.
Yeah.
If you try to, outsmart somebody or get cute with them, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
It's
and
never gonna work.
our juries are smart enough.
Oh yeah.
People think that they're tricky, they're smart, and they're being coy, and that people are going to appreciate it. Juries don't want to be there anyways,
Right.
and they're there, and they just want to hear it straight from you.
Right.
In a straight way, and that's how I try to train my witnesses to testify. But there are still those people that think they watch too much TV or something. I don't know,
Right.
but being genuine as a lawyer and as a witness, and just being yourself, don't lose yourself. Then you're going to be fine.
Absolutely. No, I loved it, and truthfully, I shouldn't say that. I hated it at first. I hated it. I mean, I used to have an upset stomach, sick to my stomach every time I was going to testify. I mean, I still to this day, I mean, and my wife will say, my wife has this great quote, if you're not nervous, then it's just not important enough, so it's good to be nervous. But I used to get super crazy nervous. But then after a while, I really embraced it, and I started to really, really enjoy it. And the mental game when you're being, truthfully, when you're being direct examined as well. Because you better be paying attention to exactly what you say, be clear, be concise, and be on point, and don't overshare.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're opening up the door for your cross-examination. And so I would always, but towards the end of my, especially my investigation career, I really started to enjoy it. I started to get into it and be like, okay, and part of it was because I did always tell the truth. And so I knew what the truth was. It was just a matter of saying it in a way where you could say the most amount of information that you could to give the jury the evidence that they needed. But then you knew when to close your mouth, because one, whoever was crossing you, redirecting you, or whatever it was, they were going to ask you the next question. Calm down, let them ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being truthful on the stand, you do have a reputation for that, and the police, the lawyers know. I've always appreciated officers like you and other officers that I'll thank them. Thank you for telling the truth. Even when I was a prosecutor and it hurt my case,
Right.
Did you didn't do this, did you? No, I didn't. I'm
Right.
And I really appreciate that, and it shows true character. And the police officers, which are very few and far between, the media will say that there might be a lot of bad apples or a lot of bad police officers. There are not. In my experience, most officers want to do good and want to tell the truth, and maybe it's leadership that's kind of pushing that. You've got to be a man of your word. You have to have integrity, good or bad, and I've noticed that, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I think one of the things too is I think there was a cultural time in our history where cops could fudge the truth a little bit, and people totally believe them. But we live in a way more cynical society now, where they're going to want to make sure you have some way to back up what you say.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly believe that a law enforcement officer and an attorney, they all take oaths, right?
Exactly.
They all take oaths to protect the Constitution and to discharge the duties of their office and do all these things. They all do that. And I really believe that 99.9999% of people, they execute that every day. They do. But the hard part I struggle with in courts is some people just make an honest mistake.
They do.
They don't remember the detail. They get nervous and they give an answer. And they shouldn't have given the answer, but they were under the pressure of that moment. They just spew something out. And that's one of the things that I struggle with a little bit in the courts is it's I've seen some really good judges, and I've been in courtrooms when some really good judges have done some things like this. They've looked over at him and be like, "Do you really want to say that?" Because the judge can just tell they rush the answer.
Right.
Why don't you read your notes? Or I've seen judges do that. Take a minute.
Yeah. No,
and they do, and they help them recover from it. And they're like, "I'm so sorry, I got nervous. This is what I misspoke."
It's normal to be nervous in courtrooms, and the facts don't always come out in
Right.
courtrooms because of that. And
Absolutely.
the facts don't always come out because of the rules of evidence. The
Right.
real story I don't even know. I would love to do a research project on how often the end story that comes out of court was the actual story, because of the rules of evidence, because of what you can say and what you can't say, and all the rules. And they're meant to be protective, but it's really interesting. But even I get nervous before hearings. I had a hearing yesterday, and I was nervous. I went into work at 5:30 in the morning, started prepping, getting ready. You've got to. Just like your wife says, if you're not nervous, it's not that important. I mean, if I'm nervous before every hearing, even if I've done 100 of them, it's
right. Or even if you're well prepped, even if you're well prepped, you're still there's this level of anxiety, this level of nervous, and I think it's too. It's that we carry this weight of, this is life-changing stuff by your words. I mean, you go in there and you do it, and people's life. I mean, there's going to be permanent consequences either way,
right?
And so I think that's the kind of the weight of it that you really deeply carry. And no, it's super fascinating. I want to transition a little bit because we're hinting around criminal stuff because I'm interviewing you, so I don't want to go down that road too far. But we've already talked about it. You worked hard in the prosecution arena to kind of get experience. But who are you working for? What law firm were you working for while you were at the city attorney's office? 'Cause I don't even remember now.
I worked for a solo practitioner, and he brought me in Mick Taliff.
Okay.
And he actually was my Little League baseball coach when I was young.
That's awesome.
And the story with Mick is interesting because after he was my coach, I was starting to get into some juvenile delinquent trouble. And it got to the point where, the prosecution wanted to send me to some youth camp or something like that. And, I was in JDC for a couple nights, once or twice. And, I always got in a little trouble. And, my family was separated. They were breaking up. And I was probably acting out. And I can see that as an adult now. But anyways, I had a public defender. And they weren't doing the greatest job. There were meetings about me and where to send me and what to do with me, where my attorney wasn't present or was agreeing. Wow. And so my parents had the courage to go to Mick Taliff's office and say, I don't know if you even do this kind of law. I don't know what you do, but he's in trouble and he needs help, and they're going to send him somewhere. So he stepped in.
So just like pro bono stepped up and helped you?
He
That's
said,
awesome.
He called me in and said, stop being stupid. I'm going to go in and ask the judge for a personal favor. Tell him you're a good kid, and if you mess up, I'll tell him I'll pay for the boot camp. So that's what he did.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was Judge McKittrick, which was interesting. Yeah. Back then I was probably 14, and Judge McKittrick. And I think Mike Roush was the assistant.
No way.
County attorney it was him. He was like brand new, maybe.
Small world.
Yeah, no, and I know all these guys now, and and I remember the court that day. They were recommending that I go to this boot camp where actually kids ended up, I think, getting frostbite and severely injured.
Oh, geez.
So I'm glad I didn't go.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, Judge McKittrick said, got another shot.
That's awesome.
I'll side with Mick, and then ultimately went full circle, and I got hired by him for a couple of years. And
that's cool.
Yeah, I was working for him, and it was a good experience. He's a really hard ass, type of guy.
Yeah.
But it was good to learn from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so how did you transition from him and into, because you kind of took off in the, doing civil work after that?
So yeah, I'm the type of person that I didn't want to sit in a room with no windows and write briefs all day. And that's what I was doing. I was doing, good work. I was learning how to write really well, but I was writing a lot of briefs. I didn't have any of my own clients. Mick was an established lawyer and had a lot of his clients, and a lot of his clients were property owners and, developers. And I was doing a lot of work for developers and property owners and big property transactional work, or taking care of some minor thing one of his bigger clients had,
Right.
and that's all. I was just writing a lot, Yep. And which is fine, and I learned a lot, but I really wanted my own clients, and I thought I could I could be happier if I went and started my own thing. It was not very secure. I did not have very much money, very little. And I took a risk and a bet on myself and left. And it was hard because, Mick was my mentor and he took it hard a bit. And so did I. And maybe it was me overthinking that, but it sounded like, and I felt like he took it a little hard. And it took a couple of years for us to really start talking or interacting. But, he served as a mediator for a couple of my cases and it worked out. So, so I took the leap a lot sooner than most lawyers would have.
Yeah.
It was just, I was getting itchy. I needed to do my own thing, be my own boss, make, live or die by my own decisions. And, I didn't have kids yet. So
right.
that was the time to take a risk.
But you've always, ever since I've known you, you've been a risk taker. So, that's not outside your character. But calculated risks.
Right.
You're not silly. You're not dangerous or reckless. You've always been a risk taker, though. You've always been like, I've had dozens of conversations with you where you're processing through decisions, and it's always extremely calculated.
Yeah.
But you're not afraid to really shove out there and believe in yourself and just go for it.
I bet on myself and my close friends.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super. And that's actually what makes our community great. Yeah. There's a bunch of people in this community that do that. And that's why I love this community. I see entrepreneurship every day here. And is that, because we're going to talk here in a little bit about your entrepreneur adventures that you're on. Does that stimulate that? Does that that going to law school and then only it's basically called being an associate, right? When you're working for an established attorney?
Yeah, I was an associate attorney.
So from being an associate to your own practice, did that's kind of really, is that when that entrepreneur mind sparked?
No, I always knew I wanted to get into business and do my own thing. And, law seemed to me to be the degree that would open the most doors for me with my interests. I wanted to be a business owner. I'm interested in politics here and there. Mm-hmm. And I like helping people, and those are really, the law opens the door for so many things, and that just made the most sense for me.
Okay. So it was always in your heart.
Yeah, it was in my heart. I always wanted to do my own thing.
So would you say in a lot of ways when you took that first jump, that actually, now that you say that, that just seems like that was like, okay, it's part of my plan, it's time to go.
It was. It was part of my plan. It was hard to rip the Band-Aid off and leave. Right. And I probably could have stayed and received a little more experience. I ended up getting some hard knock life experience as a young lawyer and only having 2 years of practical experience. But I learned and, I developed, and that's really the way my life has been, is jump in and
go for
figure it out.
So you move. And so what's the law firm you establish after that?
It was Sutton and DuBois.
Okay.
And I went into partnership with McGann Son.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. We both know McGann real well.
Yeah. Yeah. We do.
And she was pretty much just kind of like a big criminal defense attorney at the time, right?
Yeah. No, she was well respected.
Very well respected. Yeah.
Criminal defense attorney. And yeah.
Yeah. She's a pit bull attorney. She is so aggressive, and I have tremendous respect for her. She does a great job, and she's good. She's sharp. And then you did, at that time when you did it, you were kind of taking whatever, right? You were doing criminal, civil, like.
I had to keep the lights on. I had to eat. I took everything. I took contract work from the public defender's office.
Right.
I was doing youth in need of care cases. I was doing some civil cases because that's really what I came from. But I was, I transitioned from doing multi-million-dollar transactional work with my other job to any civil case I could find and work it. Parenting, family law, which is very tough work and is really necessary.
I remember. I don't remember the specifics, but we interacted way back when you had a parenting case, and it was something I was involved with, and I remember you talking to me about how it was like how stressful they were, And I can't imagine because, kids need both parents.
I agree.
They in my experience, regardless, and this, with the exception of probably sexual abuse, regardless of really what parents do to children, children always need their parents. I think once people start like sexually abusing kids, it's kind of a line that you can't come back from.
You can't come back
from.
that.
But I mean, I've even seen kids who have been physically abused, and they love their parents so much, and their parent has to be a part of their life in some way, shape, or form. And so I can't imagine. In a lot of ways, I could see that being heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because you're breaking a family, and somebody at some time during this plan is not going to have their kid, and they're going to be sitting home and not know what to do. And I've tried to put myself in that scenario. Luckily, I'm happily married, and I've got 2 amazing kids. But
Right.
yeah, I would hate to be sitting in an apartment, divorced, and thinking, man, I wish I had my kids here. So I get that, but it's a reality it happens, and it happens a lot in Great Falls. We need so many family law attorneys. I wish I liked it. I wish I could do it more. I still take them here and there, just because I think there's a need.
Right.
But they're tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did a lot of family law. That's what paid the bills. And,
Right.
It's hard, and I agree with you. Kids need both their parents, and it's age dependent somewhat on the extent and how much babies and mothers and those things. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
science behind some of that, but they do need both their parents. They need to be accepted, and that's going to help them be well rounded.
It sucks because I could see working family law. You're an attorney and like a social worker at the same time.
Yeah, the law on family law is not difficult.
Right.
It is the emotions. It's managing the family issues and dirty laundry and trying to sift through that, or having a client say, "Hey, my ex is the worst SOB ever. He's terrible. He's just so terrible." And I have to say, well, you married him, and you had kids with him,
Right.
And you've got all these great pictures with him. So, and I used to do this, and tell me 3 good things about him. I try to start the reunification and the co-parenting right off the bat, because I tell them, like, look, at the end of this, you have to co-parent. You have to communicate about your kids. You have to learn how to live in a manner that your kids can respect both of you, and that doesn't start by you tearing the other one down.
Absolutely.
That's the hard part about family law, is getting past those really raw emotions.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, yeah, and I'm the same way as you. I mean, first of all, I can't imagine ever being separate from my wife. I can't even wrap my head around it. But then like watching my kids suffer because we were
Right.
on top of it would just crush me.
Yeah.
And I think about that and I'm like, man, having to be the person in the middle of all that, there's probably a little bit of almost vicarious trauma where you're like,
yeah, you take it home.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, you take these problems home. In some family law cases and some injury cases, they eat at you. A lot of times somebody will come into my office and say, and I'll agree to represent them, and you can almost see a sigh of relief. But you know what that does to me? It makes my blood pressure shoot up.
Yep.
I'm like, I've got to help this person.
Yep.
They are relieved now that they have me, which makes my job stressful.
Yep.
And you want to do a good job. That's what you're hired for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you take it home.
Oh, I can totally see that. So then you do this for a while, and it's you and McGann, and then where do you go from there? What was your next step?
Well, after a couple years, we brought a third partner in, Eric Mills, and we were Sutton, DuBois, and Mills.
Yep.
And we practiced together for a couple years.
Yeah.
And we all did pretty well.
I love Eric, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I do too. He's, I went to law school with Eric. Him and another Great Falls lawyer, Jesse Myers out of Billings. We were close in law school, and we were all first generation lawyers, all Great Falls dudes, all guys that are just, we get it. And we hung out together and we had a great time. And I'm really happy that I'm partners with Eric. Yeah, he's awesome.
He's just like a salt of the earth person, you know. And one of the things, and I'll say this about you too. If you were to meet either one of you two, outside of like walking into 406 attorneys and saying, "Hi, I need representation,"
Right.
Without that, you don't know you guys are attorneys.
Right.
You're not. I mean, there are certain people that I'm
yeah.
like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
walk into a room and I'm like, I'm glad you brought your briefcase to the Mighty Mo. I mean, they're just, you know what I mean? There's this thing about them that it's like cops. Cops are the same way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, did you wear those 511 tactical pants on purpose,
I
or
know,
did you
yeah.
just get off work? You know, but I mean, there's like just this thing about him. But I mean, that's actually one of the things that I've always liked about you. But then, and Eric's like, he's like another level of just relaxed. Our kids go to the same daycare, so
okay.
we cross paths a lot in the morning, and you just laugh. You're just like, you'd never know that guy's a successful attorney.
Right.
I mean, he's just like, hey, what's up? I mean, he's just so chill.
Yeah.
And that's actually, there's a lot of attorneys that I deal with that we had a bad run-in professionally, and not a bad run-in like where people were lied to or
Right.
there was corruption or evil. Like, you know, as the sheriff, I get sued all the time.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that have sued me, and they like take it personal when they see me. And I'm like, you realize this isn't personal, right? But they take it personal. But you guys never give that off.
Right.
Like, it's just like, it's like, hey, there's professional, you know, that you guys are really good at separating that.
Yeah, and you have to, you know, and I'm glad to hear that you don't take it personal. I mean,
No.
Obviously the sheriff's going to get sued
Absolutely.
often, and things
Absolutely.
happen. You're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with overcrowding. You're dealing with all kinds of
I
stuff.
have a jail and we have county pockets. We're going to get sued.
Yep.
That's not the issue.
Right.
And the issue is everyone comes to the table and is a professional and honest.
Yeah.
And it goes where it goes. And when it's done, and
Yep.
move on. And
Yeah, no, Eric and I mean, we're different people, but we complement each other
Yes.
so well.
Yes.
I mean, Eric does yoga in his office, you know, and I'm watching, you know, a Sopranos clip in my office or something, you know, or I'm going down to my cigar lounge, but but we complement each other that way, and we're realizing that we're really growing well together. So yeah, after we got together, and eventually Eric and I wanted to do something different, and McGann moved on. So now we're just DuBois Mills doing business as 406 attorneys, and it's been like that for, gosh, probably 5 years or so, 4 years, and it's great, and we play off each other's strengths. Yeah, and I really appreciate Eric, and you have to swallow your pride sometimes. When you're a partner, and I realize he's better at some things than I am, and he realizes I'm better at some things than he is. He was a little earlier recognizing that, and you know, took advantage of that earlier. I wish I would have taken advantage of it earlier. So, you know, but yeah, I'll have him maybe take a deposition of a guy that I think, you know, your personality is going to do better with this guy.
Absolutely.
Because you are so easy. You explained Eric, and that's how he comes through. And by the time he's done, you won't know what you told him.
No, you wouldn't. No, I actually, it's funny you should say that. So I would be terrified to be deposed by Eric.
Yeah.
And the reason I would, like, let's say, I mean, and this could actually happen in the real world, where there could be a lawsuit filed against the county and I'm the named person and you guys sue us. And if Eric walked in the room, I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to say a whole bunch of stuff I don't want to say. Cause he's just so chill, and he's so easygoing and easy to talk to. And his, you know what, one of his gifts is that I think he does really well is like, he doesn't, I mean, he's a dangerous human being as an attorney. So understand, I recognize that, but he doesn't come across that way. No. And so therefore you relax. And I saw him one day. We were talking one day and I was like, ooh, yeah, you would not be fun.
You
to
don't
deal
see
with
it
him.
coming.
Yeah.
And a lot of the established firms before, some of these defense lawyers, I mean, they write him off like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, or, you know, and they've done that with me as well. And I prefer that.
Yeah,
Let
absolutely.
your guard down. Go ahead.
Yes.
And, you know, you might stumble through some questions and things. And as a lawyer, and as a young lawyer, you wanted to get everything perfect. You wanted to say everything perfect. But making argument, being on the stand, or talking like we are right now, you can just correct it. You can take
Right.
your time, take a breath, and say, scratch that. I'm going to ask it this way or
Right.
whatever. But you don't have to be perfect. But at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, you read the transcript and you realize, wow, he got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He got me to say a lot of stuff. I started talking about what I did in high school, and all of a sudden I was admitting to, X, Y, and Z, and there we go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I think that's the gift. It's like interviewers and law enforcement are the same way.
Yeah.
You walk into a room and you do the Hollywood, you're going to tell me what I need to know. You do that. It's like, good luck. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night. You're done.
Yeah.
Just pack up your stuff and leave. If you just be personable with people and just, and have empathy for them and try to relate to them, it's amazing what you can get out of them. So I can totally see that. So when did you start transitioning into business where you were, because I mean, you've established yourself in several businesses in our community. By the way, you have a phenomenal reputation. Everybody that I talk to, and I'm not just talking people in the business world.
I appreciate that.
My guys at the sheriff's office deeply respect you. There's people that I cross paths with that I don't know if they're aware, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you know that Neal DuBois guy? Yeah, that guy's into this and this and this," and they'll start talking to me about stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah, I knew all that." And so you've gained yourself a really good reputation. I know why, but I want to hear what you think. I know why you have, but when did you start really diving into that? What was your catalyst that you were like, okay, off we go?
I just wanted to, I found opportunities where I could go into business and be mutually successful with my friends at the same time as doing something that is good for myself and the community. I mean, it really was really just taking advantage of opportunities that came. And,
Right.
And plus I always knew I wanted to do something. And at some point you think, if not now, when? And when these opportunities come up, I'm a risk taker. I'll
Yeah.
say, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll call my friend, like with Tracy's restaurant. Not everybody knows I'm an owner in Tracy's restaurant, but one of my best friends, John Barnes.
Just so you know, the secret's out.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not. I have a chip on my shoulder just from the way I grew up.
Absolutely.
And I've always
Absolutely.
had that.
And you should.
And I never think that people are going to think great things about me or anything else. It's just, I think it's my mentality, and I recognize that, and I try to fight. It's a daily fight in my brain. Yeah. But I just try to do the right thing. And in this case with Tracy's, John Barnes, we went to kindergarten together. Awesome. He grew up as what I saw as kind of the rich kid whose family owned the Prospector casinos and all of that stuff. He had all the cool stuff. He had all the cool shoes. He had he was a great baseball player. He had an indoor batting cage, but he was always nice to me.
Right.
He was always nice to everybody, and he's got such a wide array of friends. His family fell on hard times with Prospector burning down in the first place, rebuilding.
I remember that.
Then the Department of Transportation decided to redo the roadway right in front of their brand new restaurant, and you couldn't access it. They went bankrupt, their whole family. And I knew he was looking for a way to get back. And I just, will you quit your job? You want to do this? You're going to make less than you are right now, but it's going to work out. He maybe thought about it for 10 seconds. He said, let's do it.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we bought it. And
that is another great human being, by the way.
yeah, no, I have good partners, good friends, and small group of friends. But
well, what's interesting about the people that I watch you do business with and partner with, these are extremely genuine people. They're not people out scamming or working an angle, right, or sleazy people or people that a whole bunch of people have nasty stories about. They're not. These are good people. And I mean, I've gotten to know John a little bit, and I'm actually going to have him on as well.
He's so scared to come.
Oh, is he? Oh, no, I'm so excited. He's going to be great.
He's so afraid. He's like, I'm going to forget my own name. He's not the greatest public speaker. He'll tell you that, but he's better than he thinks he is.
He'll do, man.
And he's got so much knowledge, and I am so just lucky to have him as a partner.
Well, it's cool about Tracy. So when you guys took it over and redid it and everything, I was like, I wonder how this is going to be. I was, because it was I get it. It was a legend in Great Falls, but it was not something I was willing to go eat at.
Right.
I think I'd been there twice, and it was only because like other people had dragged me there and kicking and screaming kind of, and it was And so when you guys took it over, I was like, well, and in fact, I even said, why would they keep the name? Why would they even do that? Because it had a nostalgia, but it didn't have a reputation. Kind of like it, you know what I mean? It was a famous name, but it wasn't like it wasn't like the food was superb and now you guys were taking it over and
Tracy's was booming and doing amazing when Great Falls was. And I wanted to be a part of returning that.
That's awesome.
And keeping the name and making it and having people remember. And a lot of people appreciate that we did.
Oh no, I completely appreciate that you did. Because I love the kind of legacy thing in our community. I do. And so I will never forget the first time I went in there. Not the time you called me, because I left. The first time I went in there, it was so good. And I was like, it was phenomenal. No, so I should probably explain that because I said that. So my wife and I.
Oh yeah, no, I remember this now.
It's the funniest story ever.
It is. I'm like, oh no.
It's the funniest story ever. And it goes to show you like how that people watch you and you don't realize it. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I go in there. And so my wife and I had this tradition where we would go on, it was Saturdays, I think. It was Saturdays. And we would go to a specific restaurant in town, and we would get pancakes, and we'd have a glass of wine. And it was like this. Yes, I'm admitting to morning drinking totally. And we went in and did this, and we did this like on every Saturday. It was just a tradition. And so we were like, "You guys had opened," and we're like, "Well, we're taking our business over to Neal and John. We're gonna go." Because you guys had outdoor seating too.
Right.
So we're like, oh gosh, it's beautiful. We're going to go sit outside. So we sit down and we start to order and we're like, yeah, and I'll have a Mountain Man. And she's like, I'll have a glass of wine. And like, yeah, we don't serve alcohol till 11. And Chrissy's like, I can't break the tradition. so we left. And I, no lie, wasn't gone for 5 minutes. And you were out of town.
I was out of town. Somehow it circled to me.
And you called me. You're like, what's wrong?
How long of a time frame was that?
Oh, like 10 minutes.
Oh,
tops.
geez, that's crazy.
And it was hilarious. And I'm like, no. I'm so sorry. But we have a tradition. It was like a thing. We don't do it anymore, but it was like a thing we did for a while. And so it was like, that was all, and so anyway, but it's hilarious. But the food at Tracy's is phenomenal. I mean, I've never had a bad meal there.
No, I appreciate that. We really pride ourselves on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to keep up standards with pricing. Food costs,
Yeah.
I mean, are just... The one thing that John and I decided was, we are going to keep the same food quality no matter what. We're going to keep the same bacon, the same sausage, the same stuff that everybody loves. And if it costs more, it costs more. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not, there's always an excuse for price increase. COVID.
Yep.
It's going to rebound. It never does. It never rebounds. None of our prices have gone back down to any level. They stay, then they go up. There's the next excuse, then they go up. We don't have a huge profit margin. We have a ton of employees, which are great. And, but we keep the same product. We keep the same local products that we can, and we need to price it accordingly so we can keep, employing people, keep donating to all the organizations that we do, keep doing the things that we do. I just don't want our product to suffer.
But here's the thing, and I mean, it's probably maybe my belief in God that causes this. So if you do the right thing, you're going to be rewarded 10 times over versus, screwing people over, scamming people, or dropping the food quality and keeping the prices. I mean, it's going to work out.
Right.
And it always is going to work out. I have a lot of the people that support this podcast. That is their whole motto. I mean, I just was at, Zach Lucassi, Fit Familia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just he's one of our sponsors, and I just went to his gym yesterday to do a workout. He just crushed me. I mean, he obliterated me.
Did you take one of those before pictures?
I did, and he just annihilated me. And I really believe in what he's doing. I mean, he's doing some great things. But that guy, it's funny. He reminds me a lot of you in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a hustler. He's straight up like all in. Him and his wife, they're just all in, and they're just working their butt off. And when you go in and work out in their gym, their daughter's like cruising around on the trike around you while you're working out. I mean, they're fit familia. They're all about a family, right?
Right.
And he is doing all the right things. He's making all the right moves. He's working his butt off. And a lot of it, though, I can see in his eyes, it's like, this is all on faith. But I'm going to just keep doing the right thing because I believe in my mission.
Right.
And he's going to be extremely successful. He's going to knock it out of the park. And that's what I think, like, that's one of the things. I mean, there's times I will go eat, honestly, at Tracy's, and it's only support you guys. I'm not like, you know what I mean? It's like, you're like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I can't decide what I want to eat. Oh, I'm going to go Tracy just to support those guys. And then Street Burgers, same thing.
Yeah, no, yep. Street Burgers is, I'm really proud of Street Burgers. It's gaining.
It's a cool concept.
It is, and everybody thinks it's a lot of folks are like, oh, where'd this chain come from? No, it's not a chain. That's our concept. Everything from the signage to everything is our concept. And
is it ever going to be a chain, you think?
I don't know. I just don't think. I would love for there to be a chain and open other places. I don't know how far I can stretch John.
Right.
And he's a perfectionist. He likes things done a certain way, which he should.
Sure.
And that's, I never have to worry about, which is amazing to have partners I don't ever have to check up on, worry about, nothing. I always know he's got the best interest in mind, but I don't know that we could monitor the quality the way we would want.
You'd have to find other partners.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to find those people, like, for example, you got a friend in law school and that you went to law school with in Billings. You'd have to seriously, to start it, you'd have to make those connections work to make it work.
Yeah, he'd probably do it if I asked him.
Because I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that would be really, really tough. Whether you're into getting fit or staying fit or just having fun with the family, join the Peak Health and Wellness Center today. With 2 great locations in Great Falls, they're here to serve you. If you like weightlifting, functional fitness, or enjoy a wide selection of cardio equipment, the Peak has everything you need. They also offer classes for all ages and fitness levels. The Peak even has a daycare for those busy parents out there. Go check out the Peak today. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, 1 cup and 1 bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. You'll be floored. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. Central Avenue Meats gets their beef and pork exclusively from a local producer, McCafferty Ranch. Go see them at 422 Central Avenue in Great Falls, and always support your local rancher. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems in Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems in Montana today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home, or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. So, I really want to talk about the Cigar Club. So I want to transition to that because we're having cigars.
Yes.
And these are phenomenal, by the way. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is very nice of you to do. I was so excited when I heard you were going to do this. It's such a important thing for our community. I've been there multiple times. Jason, who's here today in our studio, I've been his guest multiple times there, and
Jason's locker number one, by the way.
He is locker number one. He is he's the first. What is the first founding member?
First founding member.
Yes.
I've never seen money come out of a pocket so fast to be the number one.
But it's a great networking opportunity.
Yeah.
Amazing people. Really respectful. It was funny. I was there one night, and the conversation, because of my position, got to be a little politically heated.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because what I loved about it was they were passionate. They were having a little bit of bourbon. They were smoking some cigars, right? And then because of respect for you and the club, they all gauged themselves. And they were all like, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to. And I was actually enjoying the conversation. I thought it was super funny and good, But they all started apologizing to me, like, I'm so sorry. You're here to relax. And I said, guys, I don't care. It's fine. We can have this conversation. But I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just one person. That was a group of people going, okay, wait, we are you've created something where there's culturally acceptable things.
Yep. It's a culture.
And
Absolutely.
culturally unacceptable things.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's a culture for an age group that there really isn't a lot of cultural things to do. It's interesting. I mean, that the age group of guys, men that go there, and we have, a few women members, which would surprise some people, but they're a couple of them are more knowledgeable about cigars than I am, which, I don't even want to talk cigars, but, with Mandy or someone who can just talk me under the table, because she just keeps up on it. But the culture is just, let's relax. We're going to smoke a cigar, and we all have common interests. I mean, it's whether you're watching sports or you're talking about cigars, talking lightly about politics, but everybody is respectful. We have people from both ends of the spectrum in that cigar lounge, and I've never heard a single complaint. One of my rules is to not aggressively talk about politics. But know your audience too. I mean, I don't police the place.
No, you don't. And here's the thing. I want to be clear about this. I love talking about politics.
Oh, I know you do. That's why I said know your audience.
If you want to engage me in it,
yeah.
we'll go. Let's go.
Yep.
I mean, because I believe that we speak the truth and we say what we really think and we get after it.
What I don't want is a newer member sitting in the corner feeling like they're being attacked because of the conversation. And I've made that clear.
But your members are aware of that.
They know that.
Because just even talking to me, and I was all game.
Yep.
They were like, they wanted to gauge. They stopped and gauged it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. All right, yeah, and it was. No, that's great. Great culture.
I've never received a complaint about it. So, I mean, I know our members are great. We've had a really good, solid core of members from the very beginning. Hopefully we get more members. I would like more members, but it's one of those things. I don't advertise it. I want it to be word of mouth. I want someone to say, hey, this guy's a good guy. Also, we're a private club. So there have been members that I've said, you're not right for us.
Right.
And not... It just, some people just aren't right.
I agree. And that's okay.
It is. And, we're private. And
that's okay.
If you're not going to fit in,
Well, I mean, you and I have both dealt with the politics of what is the Clean Air Act.
Oh, yeah.
And all that BS that went with it. And
Clean Air and Indoor Air Act is alive and well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's BS. Because here we are sitting indoors smoking cigars, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Sure, we're in a private residence.
Right.
I mean, I get it for some places and places of employment, but with what I created, everybody knows what they're buying a membership
Absolutely.
for. So I have been attacked a little bit by local government and state departments. They've all gone away. I've explained my position, and that's where having a lawyer on your ownership crew helps. And, you know, I respectfully say, hey, this is where we don't conform with the Clean Indoor Air Act. And every single person is actually paying me to come here and smoke a cigar.
As it should be. I mean, this is one of the things I love about what you did is it had to be, in my opinion, post-COVID, one of the most American things that we could have done. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, everybody's drinking Kentucky bourbon in there and smoking cigars. I mean, it's American. It's awesome. It's a little rebellious. It's a little, but in a very what our founding fathers intended. So one of the things I just had tremendous respect for you for creating that club. Tremendous respect for you. I felt personally attacked by our government during COVID like I've never felt before. The anger, I mean, I am not that political of a person. I am very much like, hey, stick to the facts, stick to the law, move forward.
Right.
And I think people have seen that because people have seen me be hyper political during that time, and I backed off a lot since then. I'm like, okay, cool, we're back to doing work, right? But during that time, I honestly felt like they were purposely closing down the places where men, women, and families would meet and talk strategy about how they were going to get through something together and how they were going to create togetherness. They tried to close down churches. They closed down bars. They closed down restaurants.
Yeah, we felt it.
And then you open this private club, and I'm like, I don't think there's any way around that. There's no way around. It's like the bulletproof COVID way of. I mean, it wasn't created in COVID, but it kind of came out of it.
Right.
And I thought to myself, that's so brilliant because you know what? If this were the COVID world and you followed all the COVID rules, there was no rule for this.
No.
And
there shouldn't be.
And there can't be.
There shouldn't be.
Because it's kind of like the same as a bunch of people sitting in my garage here smoking a cigar.
Well, and that's one of the examples I used in my letters to, the Department of Revenue that says, hey, you're doing this wrong. No, I'm not. It's private. Everything about this is private. I'm not open to the public. Nobody can just go open that door.
Right. Absolutely. No, but Neal, kind of what I'm getting at though is you created something bigger than just a private cigar club. You created a culture, and you also created a way for people in this community to be free. They get to go in there. They get to relax. I mean, when Jason Laird takes me in there and talks to me about it, one of the things he says to me is he's like, I remember the first time he came in there and people were kind of like talking to Jason and I and stuff. And he's like, he told me, he's like, relax, not much leaves here.
No.
People here they're not here to create a problem for you or create a problem. They're just here to like maybe be a little sarcastic, have a little fun.
Hey,
it's all kind of in good fun.
Yep.
Like relax. And I was like, oh, okay. And it didn't take me one time there to figure that out.
You don't need to be on guard in there.
No.
And and that's why our membership is so great. And that's why I want it to be word of mouth. I don't want to have commercials blaring, hey, please be members. It would help me financially. I mean, I'm never going to make my money back on this. It was honestly a hobby.
Right.
I paid for a hobby, and I have two other partners.
Yeah.
Will Whidbey, one of my best friends in the world, and we lived together during one of the times I moved back from Reno, and he was just fresh out of the military, and he was actually a morning show host on 94.5 here with Steve Keller back then.
Way back then.
Yeah. So he's one of my partners, and then Ken Weinheimer, who is also a partner, and he owns a few things around town, and he owns a great liquor store in Helena. So
that liquor store. I almost never drive that way. I can't actually think of a time I've not drive that way and stopped and bought stuff.
Why wouldn't you? I mean,
I know.
there's so much stuff there. But, you know, at my when I was getting married, we actually were learning how to smoke cigars, and we didn't know this, but we picked some of the strongest cigars possible, and we were all sick that night. You know, we were smoking Padron somethings or whatever, and drinking bourbon at my bachelor party, and we talked about doing this as a group of friends. And developing this, and you know, we just said, you know, now's the time. Let's do it.
And now Ken just opened a big new club down in Helena, right?
Right.
And what was that called again? I can't remember.
I think it's Capital Club.
Capital Club, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw that. I haven't been down there yet, but I
haven't either.
I saw the pictures, and I was like, it was off the hook too. So it was great. I mean, and Ken's such a great man and such a great patriot. I mean, I just love that guy to death. He's amazing. He's
always on the go.
He is.
Yeah.
No, he's a hustler. I give him credit.
Yeah.
I give him total credit. I love what you're doing. I think that I do. I think there's people who are involved with big government that recognize the power of influence that those type of places have, and I think it scares them a little bit.
Which is sad. It shouldn't.
It is.
It shouldn't. I shouldn't be a blip on their radar.
You shouldn't.
I'm not doing anything that affects anybody that doesn't know what they're doing. I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything illegal. I mean, it's a culture, and it's really a waste of time and resources, you know, to do that. And when when the local health department came in knocking, you know, I met the guy. I didn't even know we paid a guy. I don't know how much we pay him, $50,000 a year, maybe, tobacco compliance officer walking around. He said, "Where do you want to meet?" I said, "Well, I don't know that we have to meet, but I'll meet you. It's probably most comfortable in my office, or we can meet outside the club." He said, "Well, let's meet outside the club." So we met, and I talked to him about the complaints and how they were BS, and the people who complained had never actually even been in there.
Right.
And that we proved that. Like, this is just somebody who doesn't like what I'm doing, which is, the complaint should have just been dismissed.
Right.
So he said, "Well, okay, well, let's go in." I said, "You're not a member."
Yeah. Yeah. That's called no bueno.
Yeah. I'm like, there's no reason for you to be in there. Not only that, I mean, the complaints didn't even have to do with what happens inside the club, but he wasn't a member of the private club. I'm not going to let anyone in that's not a member or an invitee. No. He wasn't one, and we worked through it. Complaint was dismissed, and that was, you know, one of 2, 3, or 4 issues I've had to deal with the government, but it's been pretty quiet lately, which is good. Hopefully, unfortunately, it took some work and effort and legal analysis to get to the point that
until this podcast comes out, and then
Oh no, I'm probably, you know.
That reminds me. No, just kidding. No, I think you'll be fine.
I don't know if any of those complainers listen to your podcast.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's well, unless it's for other reasons. But no, seriously though, I think that that was a cool business venture. I really do, and I love, like, for example, like, you know, Ken got into like the actually cigar making business,
right?
And so you're offering a lot of those cigars in your place, and so it's like a locally made, Montana made cigar. I mean, I know it has roots elsewhere, but I mean, the business owner is profiting, and it's so cool because you can go in there and you can buy some, you can spend money in there, which supports you, but then you can go spend money that supports Ken directly, all in there.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's a good vibe. It's a good environment. It's really nice in there. Like, it's super
I appreciate that.
Super comfortable.
We worked hard in it. I did a lot of work myself. I laid the flooring down. Yeah. I loaded everything up those stairs, and, you know, I just utilized friends, family to build that out. And when we walked in there, it was just like, what are we going to do with this space?
Yeah. Well, it's got that speakeasy feel to it.
Absolutely.
Which I think also too feels exclusive and cool. But talk to everybody, like, how much does it cost to become a member there?
Well, there's 2 levels of membership, and it's really not that expensive. There's a $200 entry fee, and then $75 a month. You're a member.
Cool.
As long as the ownership and the other members are fine. You're not going to be controversial. I mean, you're going to be fine. And there's only been one person that we've actually asked to leave. And it was just this person was being disrespectful to military. So,
Oh yeah, that's no
so that was unacceptable for us. And I'm sorry. I mean, we're not exclusionary by any means.
Yeah, but
I don't want to come across that way.
Don't ever apologize for that.
But that was a pretty snap decision.
Yeah.
And I don't need it, the $75 isn't a make or break deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're losing money on this deal, honestly. But we built a hobby. We want the culture. So yeah, it's a $200 buy-in, $75 a month. You're a member. You can come and enjoy it and be part of the community. Or there's a $1,000 buy-in, and you can have a locker, and that locker is yours for as long as you're a member. $75 a month, and then those lockers are specially made. We have to special order them. They are humidified, so
Right.
you can keep whatever you want in there, and your cigars are going to be at a perfect humidity.
That's awesome.
Every time. And those guys, I mean, I'll see some of those guys open their lockers, and some of them might need a second one. They're as packed full as possible. They've got their favorite liquors and the boxes of cigars, and they've got, but it's great. You don't have to go. You can be driving through town and say, hey, I have an extra hour. There you go.
Yep.
Punch your number in, and you're in. And
well, and these are all, and they're, it's BYOB.
it is.
So you're bringing your own stuff. It's not, there's no service. There's no nothing.
I don't encourage it. I don't discourage it. It is like your own man cave. You are
Exactly.
That's what it is. I mean, I don't tell people what to do there. Just be respectful.
Well, one of the things I really enjoy about your cigar club is that I love smoking cigars, but sitting out here, and sometimes Ben, who's back there behind the camera, sometimes he and I are smoke one or, whatever, but you get bored. Or you smoke one by yourself. I mean, those of us that are true cigar smokers, we'll smoke one by ourselves every once in a while. And sometimes that's nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you need, right? You're like, I just want to be alone. I like it in the summer. I like to sit out in my backyard and have one and just like decompress. But mostly what's the beauty of cigars is they're social.
Right.
I mean, you have all of this to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so the cell phone goes away. The social media goes away, and I've had the best conversations over a cigar.
Yeah, I agree. I have as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I feel you there. Before I opened the cigar lounge, one of the catalysts was me, because obviously we're not smoking inside of our houses with our wives and kids and everything else. I mean, if I had a bachelor pad and I lived alone and it was mine, maybe, but, or your vehicles or anything else. But I found myself below zero wanting a cigar. I'm cracking my garage, closing it, cracking it, closing it. Yep. And then I went and bought one of those propane tanks with the double propane heaters, and I'm sitting in a corner smoking a cigar. I'm like, man, we need something here.
Yeah, that's rough.
So we can be comfortable. Whether it's in Montana, you can have smoky summers where you don't want to be outside. It can be 100 degrees, or if you're like me, anything above 75 is a little warm, but I can deal with the 80s, but when it's in the 90s, I don't want to be anywhere outside. So air conditioned, heated, nice and easy. Couple big screen TVs, watch some sports, and just relax.
No, I completely agree. I've done the garage door thing like 100 times. Yeah, and you're just freezing to death. But it's like, and it's a really cool activity of camaraderie, and I think that's what people forget. And the other thing too is that, because you have to take your time, I think you build a relationship with people versus everything else is so rapid paced.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
it forces you to slow down.
It does. It forces you to disconnect. It forces you to pay attention, be deliberate. So it's amazing. So what other business ventures do you got?
That's it.
That's it?
I think so.
That's it? You
2 restaurants and a law firm.
That's it?
I think so.
Yeah, four businesses is enough?
I have forgot here and there, so I don't think I have anything else going. It's a balancing act, and you have to balance it with your family, and I think I've got enough on my plate.
Oh, yeah. You got enough on your plate. And if you didn't have good partners, like you said, you'd be overrun.
Right.
Yeah. What's next for Neal DuBois?
I'm just excited about watching my kids grow and living the life that we have now, and I'm not really engrossed about what I'm doing next. I just love so much to watch my kids wrestle or play softball or play baseball and just be present. That's so important to me.
Living in the moment.
My family now is it's just such a focus for me. And it took a while to come around to that. You know, I think that's a male thing as well. I mean, when you have a new family, you don't know how to be.
No, you don't.
And it has taken me some time to learn that and learn that is, I'm way happier now that I've discovered that than when I was trying to keep my feet in both sides of being not single, but a guy without kids and being able to go out and do whatever I wanted versus having kids. And man, it's a hard transition. But once you make that transition, it is life-changing. And I'm so happy I'm there. And that's what's next for me is, what are my kids doing next?
Just being present.
Being present and being involved and coaching Little League. And that's, if anything else, I just want to make sure I'm comfortable enough and my work is such that I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a secret to life, I think. You know, I struggled with that really hard, building a career, being ambitious.
Yeah.
My wife and I had my son really early, like right away when we got married. And so we didn't get that a lot of time together, just her and I.
Yeah.
And that offers you a lot of freedom to build yourself and build your career. And so I missed out, I think, on a lot of, and when I say missed out, I was there. I was at all my kids' sports.
Oh, sure.
I was, I even changed work assignments to make sure that I was available for my kids and my family. But when you're building your career and you're in like late 20s, early 30s, it's hard to be present in your mind.
It's a mentality
thing,
and it is not easy.
And I think though, one of the things I think we need to be easy on ourselves is we need to realize as providers, that's what we have to do. We have to be that way because we have to build a life for our family. Yeah. And it's our responsibility to make sure we do that. Yeah. I mean, there's some guilt associated with it. Oh, but I have tons. It is. When you get there though, it's great. You know, the biggest thing that it helped me was we had my son and my daughter, and they're 16 and 18. And then we had Sammy, and Sammy's 4. And I actually got a second chance at all that. Mm-hmm. I got to go, oh my gosh. And it was funny because when I first got elected sheriff, I was on the Sheriff's and Peace Officers Board. I was always going. I was traveling. I was like, oh, I got to get networked. I got to get connected. Yeah. And then my wife and I had a heart to heart not too long after that, and I stopped all that. I don't travel anymore. I stay home. If I do, my wife and I talk about it, and she's usually like, is there a way you can go? And the kids can go, and then, we can make it a vacation at the end of it. Because I just, it's so fast. Yeah. I mean, oh gosh, it's so fast. Yeah, I'm realizing that daily now. It's just, it's so fast, and I don't want to miss it. No. But you have to work. I mean, my job takes me out of town frequently. Yeah. I've got to go to a courthouse in Hard, Montana, Fort Benton. I had depositions in Chinook here a couple of weeks ago. I'm all over the place. So, but I don't like to be away from home, but it's part of life. But I don't do it unless I have to. Absolutely. No, that's exactly how you're supposed to be living at this time in your life. Yeah, I live through my kids, and I won't. It's so great. Awesome. I have great kids, and my wife is very supportive. Yeah, and she's a nurse. I mean, she works hard, and when everyone thinks that business owner and lawyer, you had tons of money. Why is your wife working? I don't have tons of money. One, number two, my wife worked hard for her career, and I wouldn't dare ask her to not work. I like that you brought that up. That's actually super fascinating because I'm the same way in my life. I mean, my wife is she has a great career. I mean, she works for the Board of Pardons and Parole. She works her butt off. She's probably had a 10 times better career than I have, but because I'm an elected official, my career is more quote unquote high profile, so people see it. Right. If people were ever to see take a camera and watch my wife work every day and watch me work every day, they'd laugh. They'd be like, you're lazy compared to your wife. She runs circles around you.
Be
'Cause she
careful
does.
about admitting that. I mean,
no,
I would hate to wear a GoPro and then have my wife wear a GoPro. I wouldn't. Yeah.
No, I'm not doing it. No, that's
As far as she's concerned, I am busy all day long, every day.
well, that's where I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah. No, you should. Hey,
I'm going to plead the Fifth right there. Is that
it's the
good? Is
Constitution.
that good lawyer advice?
yes.
right there.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, but no, seriously, I think that, and I felt guilty because we talked about having her stay home when I was a young police officer, and I was worried, honestly, that it would hurt her mentally, that she would struggle like being at home and doing that. I was really worried about it. So I feel a little bit guilty for even thinking that, but it ended up where, I mean, her career is just, I mean, she's doing an amazing thing for a lot of people, and she's really making a difference in our community, and your wife's making a huge difference in our community. And I think there's also a sense too where it keeps us accountable.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, because it's not like we can be like, you know, what was that stereotypical TV show? Was it Mad Men? You ever seen that?
Yes.
It's about like the 50s,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and they had all the and it was like a big play on all the stereotypes. And it was super
We're
funny.
halfway there.
And it's, well, yeah, but we're just pretending.
Yeah, we're pretending. Yeah.
We're only pretending.
Yeah.
But no, it's truly though, I think that having a strong woman really makes you a better man.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. No,
Yeah. Strength is shown in different ways as well. I mean, just the strength of being present, being constant, being organized, being, you know, that's a really strong sense. And then just living life a good way and working hard. And that, you know,
absolutely.
We both have wives that do that, which we better do the same thing, you know?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, I think probably next to like, I mean, obviously my relationship with God is like my top relationship, but I am terrified to death to embarrass my family. Mm-hmm. I'm so scared of that. I mean, to me, that's just like, I don't know what I'd do if I had to look my wife and kids in the eye and do something embarrassing. That would be horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and you know, every man has been on those crossroads.
Yep.
And some people make the wrong decision, but we all have been there. And I'm the same way as you. I'm not going to embarrass my family. And luckily, I think I've come over the hill and I'm over the hump where now the mentality is such that I don't want to do anything that I'm not really fighting the demons to do that.
You grow up.
You know, and it's one of those things that the older I get, you know, I think about, man, I could have done all this stuff better when I was younger, but I didn't have the knowledge. It's the paradox of life, you know. It is. Gosh, I know so much, and now I realize how smart my grandparents were and how smart everyone was, and what they're telling me is really coming true. And when I'm young, you think, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. But it's the paradox of life. But yeah, it's...
Well, there's also like your destiny, where you're supposed to be. And your past, however crippling and terrible it is, or all the mistakes you made, it leads you to where you end up.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything I did.
And I wouldn't either.
Nothing.
No, that's probably one of the great... And there were some opportunities in my life that I let just go by.
Yeah.
I was just like, nah. Or... I couldn't get in the door fast enough before it was closed on me or something, you know,
right.
One of the two. But you just got to go, okay, well, that wasn't where I was supposed to be, and just roll with it.
Yeah, you can't live in the past. And, you know, I could have made different decisions, and I don't know that I could have stayed in high school with my scenario, but, you know, those are all things that led me to where I'm at and who I am today, and I can't change it. But hopefully I can use that experience to help other people as well, and I do.
You know, it's funny, coming full circle now back to
Yeah.
your high school thing.
Right.
It's just like talk about it and come back. But so many people that I know that are super, super successful, and they're in their 40s, and they're just doing well. I mean, and I don't mean financially.
Right.
I just mean I mean, to me, wealth is that you don't work you never work a day in your life.
Right.
You go to work every day and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. What could happen today? And if you've achieved that, then you're totally successful.
Right.
And a lot of the people I know either struggled in high school, dropped out, failed out, had a catastrophic incident, something. And they're just like, oh yeah, so what? You know, and I think it's just that thing that, like, you know, they had to have something to drive them harder, to push them, you know, and I think that's.
Yeah. It takes a special type of person to get through that. Not everybody does either. I mean, you just don't know.
Well, so like if I were to go back to my high school days, like I've never even been to my high school reunions. I probably need to go someday. Just to check
you
it out.
definitely should.
I know, I should. I was actually in town during my 20th and didn't even go. I was in Bozeman when it happened. I didn't even go. I should go. But I think a lot of the people that I knew that were super hyper successful, I can tell. I mean, you see them on social media, you hear about them through friends. They're not happy.
Right.
They're not living their best life. They're not doing those things. And you're like, geez, that's so sad, you know? And I think a lot of times if you go through all that heartache when you're young, it just drives you to move on and do more things.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I go to my high school reunions, but I almost feel like a fraud. I didn't graduate.
So before we're getting ready to close out here, but before we do, you've said the word fraud twice. You said, I feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
And I like that you said that, because I feel like that all the time. You know, if you're gonna if you're gonna go try to achieve something, you're gonna work. And this is my opinion. If you're gonna work harder and you're gonna go get something that maybe other people think is out of your reach, you don't necessarily in your mind, because you know yourself and you know I can do that. When you do it, do you think that's why you feel like that a little bit, is because you're like, hey, nobody ever thought I could do what I'm doing? And
Well, I always think that no one thinks that I can do what I'm doing for some reason. It's just, it's that chip on my shoulder that I've always had, and I try to let it go. And you know, I don't want to have a self-centric view, because I don't think people think that. But it crops into my mind, and I've got to be cognizant of it and push it aside and just trudge forward. But, you know, I don't always think that, you know, I'm the best, or that people think that I'm going to be able to do it. But I just do my best and try, and then I think, you know, I can do this, and then push that chip aside and do it.
But I mean, you got to know that you can outwork anybody, right?
I don't know that.
You don't have that attitude,
No.
like try me and I'll outwork you.
I know I won't stop working when I need to.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I have the same belief. I have a huge chip on my shoulder too.
Yeah.
I'm an underdog a lot of the time, and I don't care. And I'm like, whatever. I'm still gonna go.
Sure. It doesn't bother me either.
No.
I'm fine being the underdog and being underestimated. And I don't know that I'm underestimated as much as I think I am anymore. But
but I think that all that matters is what your view is, right?
Right.
Because I mean, you're really competing with yourself.
It is. Every day you
Yeah.
compete with yourself.
Yeah, every day I'm trying to go, okay, well, how can I do better than I did yesterday? Or, I mean, and sometimes it breaks down into months or years. It just depends on the equation.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel, so when you said that though, I feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
I call it I've had to fake it till I made it a lot of times.
Yeah.
I had to become a persona of something I knew I could do before I did it. And then all of a sudden you're there. And you're like, how did I get here?
You rise to the occasion. You do it. I've taken on cases that I'm deathly afraid of because no one else would take them, and I'm rise to the occasion.
Right.
What do? I go in at 3 a.m. every day and figure it out and work hard, because you care about what you're doing and you care about your word. You're not just going to exit stage left and get out of there. You know, you're gonna rise to the occasion when you commit yourself.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Neal, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. This was an amazing interview. I really appreciate everything you're doing for our community.
Thank you for having me. I'm really humbled by being in this community. I love Great Falls. I love it. I grew up here. It gets a bad rap, but that's fine.
I think that's done.
It's getting better.
I truly believe that's over. I truly believe that leaders like you are one of the reasons that it is over. I will tell you this. I came here in 2002, and I was just trying to find an exit strategy out of here. I was. I grew up in Bozeman, and Bozeman wasn't what it is today. It was a 22,000 person cow town at the time.
Right.
But I was like, I don't get this place. But it was people like you that adopted me into this community. And it was like, no. You're in our community. You're staying. And I had multiple people, when I was a downtown officer, I mean, that was huge. I mean, those downtown businesses, they will die for you if you're loyal to them.
Right.
And I really just felt a sense of community. And you really exemplify that, though. Like that's what you're doing. Is every day you're doing great things for our community, whether it's in your practice, whether it's in your business, or just your general caring about people in our community. And probably the most important thing is your focus on your own family, is how it shows through. But this was a great interview.
No,
Thanks
you.
for all you do, man.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're doing great things. Thanks, Neal. Hey, everybody. Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast. And we really appreciate the amazing support already that this channel has received. Our social media is blowing up. Everywhere we look, people are liking and clicking and commenting. But what we really need you to do is subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Spotify. That's what drives this channel. That's what's going to keep this channel going forever. Tim and Ben are behind the scenes doing tireless editing, working on this to make this come out the way it does, this high quality product that it is. So please go in there, click subscribe, click follow, and make sure that this channel sticks around for a long time, because we truly believe it's doing a lot of great things for our community. But there's many, many other people out there who we need to support. So follow and subscribe today. Thank you.